Welcome to the 34th chapter of the book of Exodus. We continue with Moses by the mountain, on the mountain, coming down 3 or 4 or 5 times. Last time he came down, he saw the sons of Israel bowing down to a golden calf into idolatry, and it was drunkenness, like an orgy going on. And he threw the tablets down and broke them. He had a problem with anger. Now, having a problem with anger sometimes is not the correct thing to do. It's bad. People, I saw years ago, I was in Los Angeles and I was going down the street coming up to a red light, and there right in front of me was this giant truck. And it was 2 lanes both ways, except there was also a parking lane, which would make it 3, but for like about 100 feet before the corner, you could actually get into that lane and turn right on a red light. This truck couldn't make it if he was in that lane because it was too big, so he had to make his turn from the right lane, normal right lane, and then go around the corner. And he had his blinkers on. And so all of a sudden, here comes this Porsche, a little sports car. And it comes flying up and it goes into that right lane where you turn right, which is okay. Puts his right lights on, his blinkers on to go right. The light turns green and the truck goes in front of the Porsche. The Porsche thinks he's going to hit him, so he lays on his horn, and all of a sudden the truck stops, and it doesn't hit him, but he has the Porsche blocked. The Porsche couldn't go forward. So all of a sudden I see the door of the dump truck open up. This big burly guy comes out, really mad, and runs over, and this guy in the Porsche could see that he was angry and coming at him. He starts rolling up his window. This is back when they had roll-up windows. And he gets it about halfway rolled up, and the big burly guy, grabs a hold of this window, and he couldn't pull it up. And he starts sticking his hand there and beating on this guy. Well, the guy's dodging and weaving these, going back and everything. And so he did it like 10 times, and finally he stopped, and I guess he went back and got into his truck, and the Porsche backed up, and the truck went. So, that was uncalled for, to get out and get mad at a guy like that and then start punching him. He could have very easily been arrested, given a ticket, and then went in front of a judge, and the judge could have sent him to anger management for a week and would have cost him a lot of money. So that's a scenario. In anger, Moses had of throwing down those tablets. I've been angry. I've had my anger management problems. When I was younger, I would get really mad at things, and I had a electric sander, really nice Hitachi or Makita, and the paper kept coming off of it over and over and over. Finally, I was so mad, and it was a hot day. The windows was open. I just took it and I threw it out the window. And so I did other things too. I lose things. Couldn't find them. I'd start getting mad and saying all kinds of things I shouldn't, until I grew up and realized that I'm not getting anywhere. All this is Satan throwing all this stuff at me to make me get mad. And so I pretty much don't get mad anymore, as much as I did, hardly. And if I can't find something, I just say a prayer, Lord. And now every time I can't find it and I say the prayer, I find it within a minute. So before, I would just get all upset and yelling and screaming and running around with a chicken with his head cut off, not getting anywhere, and then feeling guilty afterwards. And so if you have the management problem, then give it to the Lord and pray instead. And I think you'll find that it'll help make all the difference in the world. Now, righteous anger, I believe there is a righteous anger, and I'm not the judge here, but I think that probably Moses would have a good case for righteous anger, because he saw the children of Israel doing what they shouldn't, and everything he was going for was for their benefit, and here they're throwing it all away and partying and all these. And I reminded me of Jesus, who went into the temple and cast out all the people that were selling animals and so forth, and the money changers dumped over their table, coins went flying, tables, chairs went flying, Jesus throwing it all out. Well, that's a righteous anger, and he was angry it was going on, and I feel that this case right here is the same thing, but nevertheless, Moses had, it says the Lord said to Moses, dress to yourself 2 tablets of stone, as also the first. Now, I don't know if it meant that he dressed the first one, but it said God wrote on them on the back and the front with his God's handwriting. So now this case, he dressed the stone and took them, and he sent to me to the mountain. So he's got to carry these stones all the way back up again. And God says, I will write upon the tablets the words which were upon the first tablets, which you broke. And I was wondering how he said that. Did he say that which were upon the first tablets which you broke? Or did he say it, which were on the first tablets which you broke? Well, the imperative gives it more the first instance, because if an imperative, it's like the first tablets which you broke. It gives it an emphasis rather than the sorrowfulness that he did it. But nevertheless, I could be wrong here, but he says, then, and come prepared in the morning, and you shall ascend upon Mount Sinai, and you shall stand there to me upon the tip of the mountain, top of the mountain. So again, he's going back up, and if this is the Mount Jebel Sin Bishar, it's only like 1,000 feet up off of the plain, at 2,000 above sea level. And so this is where I believe it was. Others believe it was the same thing. It was not something way far south, because they were only 2 months out by the time they got to this mountain. 1 million people wouldn't make it way down to the bottom of Sinai in just 2 months. So this was fairly close to where they did leave in Egypt, close to the Red Sea. And then he continues, and let no one ascend with you, nor appear in all the mountain. So keep everybody away from this mountain. And the sheep and the oxen, let them not feed neighboring that mountain. So the animals had to be kept back, and the people from where he went up. And Moses dressed 2 tablets of stone, just as also the first. A proton, first, one, the only kind, first one made. And Moses, rising early in the morning, ascended onto Mount Sinai, insofar as the Lord, Kyrios, ordered him. So up he goes with these 2 big stones. And Moses, and I doesn't say here he took Joshua. And Moses took with himself the 2 tablets of stone, we have duos too, lithinos. Whenever you see this, generally has something to do with a stone, lithography, writing on hard tablets. And Kyrios, the Lord came down in a cloud. Now, coming down in a cloud, and stood beside him there and called the name of the Lord. Reminds me of Jesus. Jesus was in a cloud when he went up. He said he's coming back in a cloud. So whenever we see the cloud with a divinity, to me it's Jesus. That's my take on it. And the Kyrios went before his face and called out, Kyrios, Kyrios, and I'm a God, the Lord God. And I believe this is the title, not his name. I believe Oon, the being one, is his name. But anyway, the Lord, pitying and merciful, lenient, full of mercy, and true. Pitying, it's a feeling sorrow for somebody that is suffering in some way or having it hard, and it's like you feel sorry for them, and it's a spiritual, psychological thing. Pitying is there's nothing necessary. You're not doing anything. You're just feeling sorry for them. And merciful, and now mercy, it means you take an action of some kind of kindness or forgiveness towards a person. So there's an action with this. So God has his feelings, and he takes it into action, and the action next is lenient, and that's the quality of the punishment that the person would maybe should be getting. And so he's lenient. He doesn't give them the full impulse of his anger or whatever. And full of mercy, so similar to the merciful. So he's full of it. He has way more than most people would probably have on other people. And true. And the opposite, of course, of true is false. And God is true. Jesus says when he was with Pontius Pilate about the truth, and Pontius Pilate said, "What is truth?" And observing righteousness. So God also looks for people to do the righteous things before him, and doing mercy for thousands. So it's not only one person, but it's for thousands, probably, who knows, way more. Removing lawlessnesses, so he has a way of changing a person's lawlessness, like the anger, and removing it, and iniquities, forgiveness, and sins. And the one liable he will not cleanse, bringing the lawlessness of the fathers upon the children and upon the children of the children unto the third and fourth generation. If there is no, the liability is there, and there is no forgiveness, no repentance, no nothing, then they are guilty, and the guilt will continue on down. I look at, again, the Jews with the crucifixion of Jesus, the blood be upon him and our children. And I look at that as today, and I think that's still the case. And Moses, hastening, bowing upon the earth, did obeisance. He's going to, he sees this going on, what's happening, what God is doing, so he is bowing just as they did, just as James, John, and Peter did on the Mount of Transfiguration, on what I can think was Mount Meron, when Moses was there with Jesus and Elijah. They bowed and did obeisance. And Moses, he said, "If I have found favor before you, let my Lord, Kyrios, go with us." Again, go with us, not just before us, but go with us. For the people is hard-necked. Well, you would think it would be are hard-necked, but esti is in the singular. So the people here is I forgot what they were. They got a name for that when it's a group of people, but it's in the singular, masculine, nominative, singular, for a group of people. And so you would say that people, it is hard-necked. It could be it is in that way. And you shall remove the sins and our lawless deeds, and we will be yours. So he is able to do that basically through the what we see here, the covenant and all the laws that he will give them to do for the sins and their lawless deeds. And the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I establish with you a covenant before all your people." Another covenant, the covenant of Sinai. "And I will do honorably, which has not happened in all the earth and with any nation." What God does with Israel, these people here, is putting laws regulations, and if they do these things, then they will be blessed over any other people in the world, which they were in the past tense. And all the people among whom you are shall see the works of Kyrie, of the Lord. For it is wonderful what I will do to you. This Thavmastah, wonderful. I think it was Jacob when he was fighting with the Lord, wrestling. He asked him his name, and he says, "Why do you ask? It is wonderful." You heed all as much as I give charge to you in the imperative. Now you heed all these things. Behold, I cast out before your face the Amorite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Girgashite, and the Jebusite. All these people up in Canaan where they're heading for. Well, take heed to yourself. Take heed, lest at any time you should establish a covenant with the ones lying in wait upon the land into which you enter into it. So don't do that. When you go in there and these people are there, you are not to establish any covenant with them. And I look at Israel today, and they have the Palestinians are there, but I don't see Israel has not entered a covenant with them. They're there, and that's about it. But lest at any time it becomes an occasion of stumbling to you. But the people are there. Their shrines you shall demolish. Well, now Israel today has not demolished the Islamic shrines, that's for certain. And their monuments you shall break. And the Dome of the Rock Mosque is on the mount. They haven't broken it. And their sacred groves you shall cut down, and Muslims don't have sacred groves. And the carvings of their gods you shall incinerate in fire. And Muslims don't have gods as such. They have monotheistic people that have one small God. And because in the book of Psalms, the God of Israel says the small God, the gods of the nations, are demons. That's what he says. And then he continues, for not in any way should you do obeisance, that is, get onto the ground and bow down to them, to other gods, which the Muslims do. But he's talking to the Jews here. For Kyrios, God, a jealous name. Zeloton, you can add to your English derivatives book, a zealot, zeloton, jealous. A jealous name is a jealous God. Lest at any time you should establish a covenant with the ones lying in wait upon the land, and they should fornicate after their gods. They should fornicate after their God. The people, are you, I'm not sure on that one. I have to look it up, parse it. And should sacrifice to their gods, and they should call you, and you should eat of their sacrifice offerings. So if they want you to partake, you don't do it. And you should take of their daughters, if that would be the result of going with them and doing all these things together, and you should take of their daughters to your sons, and your daughters you should give to their sons, and your daughters should fornicate after their gods, and your sons will fornicate after their gods. So that's exactly what happened with King Solomon. He went to women of these other nations and brought in their gods, and the people of Israel went into idolatry of all these other gods of the nations. And you shall not make to yourself a molten gods, idols, especially like the calf that Aaron made. Now he changes a little, and he goes into the law. And the holiday of the unleavened breads, beginning with Passover, you shall guard. 7 days you shall eat unleavened breads. That is those flat breads like a pita bread or what's that other one they call it? I can't think. Matzah. Just as I gave charge to you at the time in the month of the new produce. So he told them that earlier. For in the month of the new produce you came forth from out of Egypt. All opening wide the womb are mine. The males, firstborn of the calf and of the sheep, they are to be sacrificed to God. And a firstborn beast of burden you shall ransom with a sheep maybe a mule, donkey, something like that. Instead of sacrificing them, they ransom them with a sheep. So let's say the beast of burden, I don't know, it could be valuable, maybe more so than the sheep, or the opposite. So however it would be, you would trade the sheep for the right amount for the beast of burden. Or it could be a camel. But if you will not ransom it, you shall give value for it. So if you don't give him the sheep, then you give him money. Every firstborn of your sons you shall ransom. Of course, they're not going to burn them up. But it says, so they are to sacrifice, give by sacrificial animals, and I think the poor person was doves. Every firstborn of your sons you shall ransom with paying for buying these animals. You shall not appear before me empty. So when the people went to the temple, they paid for these animals and so forth, and bought them there, and that's when Jesus came in, because they were doing it to make money. 6 days you shall work, but the seventh day you shall rest. In the sowing and in the harvest you shall rest. It doesn't say Sabbath here, it's the seventh day. In a holiday of a period of sevens you shall observe to me the beginning of the harvest of wheat, and a holiday of gathering in the middle of the year, and I'm not sure if that means Pentecost, because 7 times 7 is 49. 3 times of the year every male of yours shall appear before the Lord God of Israel. So they would go to Jerusalem 3 times a year. And Jesus went with the family, and it talks about that, where he was left there by the parents, thinking he was in another carriage or wagon, and they couldn't find him. They had to go back, and he was at the temple. He's 12 years old. And so they went there. For whenever I shall cast out the nations from your face, and I widen your borders, he shall not desire one thing of your land. That is, the people can't have it. Whenever you ascend to appear before the Lord your God 3 times a year. So if they're doing these things, then it's protecting your land. You shall. Now, I don't know if the people do that today. I don't think they do. You shall not slay the blood of my sacrifice offerings with yeast, zemi. So that makes it leavened. So no yeast. And so it's not with the sacrifices of flat bread. And that which is offered in sacrifices shall not remain through the night into the morning. For the holiday of the Passover, the animal has to be eaten the whole night. The first produce of your land you shall carry into the house of the Lord your God. So now not only land, but the first produce of the land as far as the wheat and things from the vineyard and the trees. You shall not boil a lamb in the milk of its mother. Galacti, where you have the Milky Way, the galactic, and then mitros, a maternal from that. Those are derivatives. And the Lord said to Moses, write to yourself these words, for upon these words I have established to you a covenant and into Israel. So now sounds like Moses had to write these things on these tablets instead of God. And Moses was there before the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, just as he was the first time, which is mentioned in 24:18, chapter 24, verse 18. A bread he ate not, and either, hydro, comes from that, he drank not, water he drank not. And he wrote upon the tablets these words of the covenant, the 10 words. Jesus was in the wilderness and had nothing to eat for 40 days and 40 nights. So he wrote these words, the 10 words, could be the 10 sayings. I don't think it was just actually 10 words, but the 10 commandments maybe. It doesn't say a commandment. It says words. Excuse me. And the Lord went down, and as Moses went down from out of Mount Sinai, even the 2 tablets were upon the hands of Moses. And in his going down from out of the mountain, even Moses knew not that the appearance of the complexion of his face was glorified in his speaking to him, to God, just as when Jesus was on Mount of Transfiguration, he was changed, his appearance into brightness, and so the same thing would happen to Moses here. And Aaron and all the sons of Israel saw Moses, so he's coming down. They see him, and he was being glorified in the appearance of the complexion of his face, and they feared to approach him. I mean, it's like if this radiating out of your face, it's like, man, something's really wrong with this person. I don't even want to get close. Maybe it's something I can catch. Now, I don't know if they caught anything or it can harm them. And Moses called them, and Aaron turned towards him and all the rulers of the congregation. And Moses spoke to them, and after these, it's me. After these things, all the sons of Israel came forward to him. So once they knew it was okay, then they come. And he gave charge to them all, as much as the Lord spoke to him on Mount Sinai. So all the things that we had in those last 10 or 15 chapters tells them all. And as soon as he rested speaking to them, he placed upon his face a covering. And whenever Moses entered before the Lord to speak to him, he removed the covering until exiting. It doesn't say how long this went on, but it must have been a while. And going forth, he spoke to all the sons of Israel as much as the Lord gave charge to him. So apparently he continues being told things by the Lord, not only on the top of the mountain. And the sons of Israel saw the face of Moses, that it was glorified. And we will be glorified, I believe, someday, just as Moses. And our glory will be radiating from the Lord Jesus Christ in the New Jerusalem and whatever he has planned for us in paradise with him. And Moses put the covering upon his face until whenever he entered to converse together with God, him. Chapter 35, the choice portion offering. So now he goes and tells the people and starts explaining everything in detail of what the Lord said. And a lot of this is repeating of what God already told them to do. And we will go through and find out in detail all of these offerings and so forth. And beginning next video seminar, hope you'll join us. God bless.